Welcome to the Day 2 podcast. Today's episode is following in line with the blocking and tackling stuff that has to be done for success on Amazon. In the last episode, we spent a lot of time breaking down that nefarious tactic called buy box suppression. Thank you, Amazon. Today, we're going to talk about a lesser problem, but still important, search suppression and delistings related to what Amazon likes to call NCX. Thank you for joining the Day 2 podcast. I'm here with Shannon Roddy, who is an Amazon educator, strategist, biz dev guru, teacher, all around great guy. Welcome, Shannon. How you doing today?
Thanks, Jason. I'm sick as a dog, but I'm here because I love brands.
You're a gamer.
And
You're a gamer.
I love our business. And you didn't call me to get out of bed this morning. I got up because I'm passionate about what I do. And I think this episode is so important. I want to get it out to our audience. So let's do it.
Thank you, Shannon. Your passion is infectious and I love it. So thank you. Thanks for being here. Shannon, we often talk about the basics, right? Yeah. If you were on a sports team, soccer, basketball, football, whatever it was when you were a kid, what did the coaches always help you do from a very young age all the way into high school? And if you were lucky enough to play in college, then they always talk about the fundamentals. The stuff we talked about in the last episode, the stuff we're talking about today, search suppression and NCX delistings are, to me, blocking and tackling. They are the absolute fundamentals of what every seller needs to pay attention to, because funny thing, Shannon, if your listing isn't available, and you do, and the Amazon shoppers do a search in your category and you're search suppressed, guess what happens? You cannot get a sale.
Yeah. 0 sales. You know, it's interesting, Jason. I had a call with a prospective client yesterday. They were a referral and just doing a quick account audit. And it's sort of like that fear factor that every seller faces. Oh my God, our sales dropped by 90%. Why? And they literally don't know why. And it's kind of like going through this fault tree. Last week, we talked about pricing issues, losing the buy box because of pricing issues, but there are dozens more. And the thing that I want to mention is your listing not showing up in search results is a symptom. It is not the root of the problem. So what we're going to talk about today is some of the roots of the problem, of what causes that symptom. And the symptom inevitably and ultimately leads to lack of sales. So let's start at the top and talk about search suppression. What does search suppression mean, and how does that impact sellers, and why is that such a painful thing to happen?
Dr. Roddy, I love the symptom analysis there and the root cause. Yes. So what is search suppression? If you've done everything right and you have great SEO for your highest volume, most relevant keyword, and you're showing up on what's called organic search, not a sponsored, a sponsored placement on search results page will have that grayed out sponsored word slightly above, right below the title, right above some of the information. If you are organic, that is a free link, which means anytime an Amazon shopper clicks on that link, you're not having to pay unless that shopper actually goes into the cart and buys your product. That is the holy grail. That is Main Street. In terms of Amazon selling, you want to have both ad placement and that organic search placement. And I've seen this happen. We look at our clients' sales every day to look for any anomalies. Right. If we're having, $5,000 days, $10,000 days, $100,000 days, and then tomorrow all of a sudden we're down to an $80,000 day, that's a 20% drop from the 100,000. We're like, okay, what's going on? Right. That's the very first item that we look at in terms of our diagnosis, Dr. Roddy, is are our sales down or are they up?
Right.
If they're up, we look at what's called product availability. We want to see if that listing is active.
Right.
Now we may go in the listing and see that it's active. We may go and do a search for our highest volume keyword. We know what that placement was because it's in our reporting, or we looked at it a week ago. And search suppression, what happens with this, you do the search for that keyword. Let's say you're selling tennis rackets. And I search for kids tennis rackets. And last week, I was on that second row of search results, or third or fourth row of search results. Now I look today, my sales are down. I'm trying to diagnose the problem. I do that keyword search and I look down, and all of a sudden my listing is nowhere to be found. I am no longer on Main Street. It's like I was on Main Street before and I was getting all this traffic and my sign was out there. And then all of a sudden overnight, someone came with some big boards, knocked out my sign and put big boards on the doors and the windows so no one can see what I'm about and what I'm selling. That, in essence, is search suppression. And it's terrible for business, Shannon.
Right.
Terrible.
Yeah, boarded up and closed for business. Now, sometimes Amazon in the back end under your manage inventory will show you, hey, this has been search suppressed. Sometimes it shows up as a performance notification. We'll talk about NCX in a little bit. But the main thing is there are multiple root causes that can cause Amazon to suppress a listing. So let's start at the top and talk about what's one of the first ones. What's probably one of the most common ways that a listing gets suppressed?
Yeah, great question. And I would start by figuring out, if you don't do the method I just described and do a search for a keyword where you know you have good ranking and placement, you can go into Seller Central, your Seller Central account, go to the manage inventory page. You can click on search suppressed and inactive listings,
Right.
which is ironic because we're going to talk about NCX. It'll also show up there if you've been delisted. So that's a good way to see all of your products that have a listing health problem, should
Right.
we say. Now, why do you get search suppressed? I will start, Shannon, by saying there will be reasons that don't exist yet that Amazon will turn on to search suppress you in the future. I guarantee it. I
Right.
guarantee it. We could take that one to the bank. But in the meantime, at least in Amazon's language, if you have incompletely filled out all of the listing attributes as part of adding your listing to Amazon, if you're missing product tags, if your product title is over character limit,
Right.
if you don't have if you have a main image that violates the terms of service and it's not on a white background, or you have words overlaid on the image
Right.
of that main image, all of those are good reasons. Not good. I don't think they're good reasons. They're Amazon reasons for why you could be search suppressed. And so in order to prevent that search suppression, read up on your terms of service, make sure that you're not going above and beyond the character limits on the product title. Make sure that your main image is following guidelines. It's on a white background. It's bright. It's clear. It's well lit. It's easy to read. And I will say that I'll sit on the main image topic for a minute. I don't care if your competitor is violating it.
Right.
Do it anyway. Right.
Right.
If you're search suppressed, right. This is, how many times have you heard this, Shannon? But Jason,
Somebody else is
my
doing it.
competitor who's kicking my butt has this product shown in a living room with models on it, with writing all over it. If they're doing it, I should be able to do it as well. I agree with you. I agree with you. You should be able to do it. But Amazon's AI bots don't care about what your competitors are doing. And there's no system out there that's more inconsistent about enforcing their own policies. So just follow the rules, and then you'll get unsuppressed. Then you can start filing tickets and calling out your competitor through the Amazon seller system. You can report a violation that way to get them down. In the meantime, just get your listing active again. Get back on Main Street. Pull those boards off your windows and doors and get that sign polished up so people know you're there.
I have a couple of thoughts that I want to point out. Number one, listing suppression is not the same as a product getting suspended or a listing being restricted or inactive. Search suppression is usually and often one of the easiest to fix. So if your title is over 200 characters, which is kind of the normal limit, but in some categories it may be less, and Amazon may change that character limit. So whereas last month you weren't over it, and now without changing your title, you are over it, all you have to do is reduce the character limit and your listing will come back up. So that's one. The other thing that I want to mention is you really need to monitor this and have monitors and alerts in place, because it's not enough to say, oh, I just go in and check every day. Because if you check at 9 o'clock in the morning and your listing gets pressed at 9:05, you may lose an entire day of sales on your bestseller because you weren't paying attention. You didn't have an alert set up that said, hey, my listing has a problem. And then the other part, following along with the doctor analogy, is that sometimes you can get a false positive. Sometimes Amazon flags your image for something that isn't actually wrong, and you have to appeal that and say, hey, Amazon, this is actually okay. Your bot spotted it. And then you have to get that, redone. So there's a couple different things that can happen. What about including terms? Now, this happens all the time. I think we've mentioned it in some previous episodes. But if I've got a product and I say, this apparel is amazing, it's got these antibacterial properties, what did I just do that's going to get my listing suppressed?
Oh, yeah. Well, you just stepped in it, Shannon. If you do that, anything that kills anything in this country and is listed for sale has to be either EPA registered, or in the marketing messaging has to be approved by the FTC, not preemptively, but it can be taken down by those two agencies. And Amazon takes a lot of heat on behalf of third-party sellers when the EPA and the FTC come breathing down their neck. And so what your misstep was there in that example, Shannon, is if you don't have an EPA registration that proves that your product is antibacterial, which means it kills bacteria, or anti-germ, or any of those other things, if you don't have that registration, Amazon's bots are going to find you and they're going to delist your product. And then you're in a world of hurt. Look, I had a really great friend and brand that just couldn't survive on Amazon because he sold this jewelry cleaning product, right? It's a hot tub, the jewelry spa hot tub, which is still one of my favorite names of products of all time. And the reason why his product killed germs is because you put it into a liquid that was not EPA registered. And then you put it into this container without the jewelry in it. You microwaved it to a certain heat temperature, which killed germs and bacteria. And then you take it out of the microwave, you drop your jewelry in there, you do this spin swish thing, and then the stuff is amazingly clean. So it was all logical to me. But because he put, kills germs, deactivates, there's some really nasty stuff on your jewelry. As you see my writing ring, I'm sure that's nasty. I need to drop it in the hot tub jewelry spa cleaner. But if you do that and you don't have that EPA registration, Amazon's not playing. They'll take the listing down. And so it's a really good point. Look, I will say this about Amazon, and they deserve some kudos. The fact that I can go to the manage inventory page and identify and see search suppressed or inactive listings is great. It's a lot better than having 500 products and having to click on each and every one to figure out where it is. So that's a really positive step in the right direction. If you're brand registered, you can go in there and you can see some brand health issues as well and identify some problems with listings. You go into your account health page, you can see some stuff there. So they're doing a better job than they have been. And Shannon, I know that we, with our List software system, we have internal tools that help to make sure that our clients have their listings active forever. And we're notified immediately. Our performance compliance team are all notified immediately to start taking action. Do you know of any tools externally that are third-party software tools that sellers could use to help them identify some of this stuff?
My favorite one is AMZ Alert. That's only going to identify things that are external, that happen on the detail page, that can be seen externally on the detail page. It won't identify internal issues. So if your listing is active and you're winning the buy box, it's probably not going to detect anything, but it is a great tool. I worked with them early on, helped provide some feedback that helped make it better. And I think it was recently acquired by another company. But there are some great ones out there that will give you that external notification or alert. But you do still need some internal notifications. I mean, I've gone into clients' accounts where we're looking at a new account or doing an audit, and they've got performance issues that they never even have seen before. It's like, I didn't even know where to find the performance notification. So there's all these elements of having to keep up to date with all of Amazon's changes, know where all this stuff is, where to find it, and how to solve it once it happens. So we mentioned this at the beginning, but I want to come back to it. There's a thing called NCX, which again, a little Amazon acronym sort of for negative customer experience. And that is, again, sort of under that brand health tab that allows you to see all of your listings that have had customer complaint issues. What are some examples of some of the customer complaint issues that might give you a negative NCX score and could potentially delist your product?
Great question. I want to add one more tool in there in terms of account health too. It's Buy Box Shield.
Okay.
I have a close relationship with the developer of that product. It's a good one, and they do a good job of identifying things like out of stocks and delistings and number of new seller attached to your listing and stuff like that. So that's another good third-party tool. Of course, you come with AV7 is all part of the package.
We got it.
NCX is one of those, Shannon, that can be really frustrating for a seller. Well, first of all, folks who are too connected to their brand, they feel like their product is their baby. Right. It's particularly painful. I've been there. You've been there. We've all been there. But look, here's the thing. When an Amazon shopper returns a product, I believe this is still the case, you have to select a reason for why you're returning it. And if I'm returning a product, I don't want to have to think. I just want to return it, do it quick and easy, and get my money back so that I can go buy the next thing. And so I think what happens often, and it really drives sellers crazy, is someone will select the drop, down for the reason for the return, and it says not as expected, or it could say did not receive what I was sold,
Yeah.
those
Item
kinds of
not as
things. If someone would
described,
just
does
select
not
it,
match
yeah,
description.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. There's a number of reasons for a return. People will just hit the drop down. They're pissed. They're in a hurry. They click it, and they don't even really mean it.
Yeah.
And so if you have 100 orders, and then all of a sudden 20 of those orders come back, and there's a theme for the reasons, negative reasons for returns, you get hit and delisted for NCX, like you said. And so, it's not always fair to sellers, but hey, that's the price. That's the price of poker when selling on Amazon. And there's some things that you can do. One of the things that works often is if the return reason says that what was the language, Shannon, that you said
Yeah,
that
like
the
item not
listing.
as described, for example, is one, or does not
Perfect.
match website description.
That's perfect. So if you see that there's a number of those 20 returns that say item not as described, what you can do from that NCX dashboard, you can click through, edit your listing, try to figure out, do the math and figure out what you can do to update your listing so that it better matches what the product the customer is going to get receives. So I did a bad job of describing that, but
Well,
if you,
I've got a great example for that. We worked with a company. They sold, those sort of steel wall hangings with little sayings and that kind of thing. Really popular on all those HGTV TV shows. And so they had one, and they were calling it like chrome. And people were like, "This is black," and it's like, well, it's really more of like a brushed steel. And so basically, there's an element of, you can push back and say, all of my customers are wrong. You're just wrong. They're reading it wrong. They're looking at the image wrong. Or you can take that information and say, there's a common theme here. I need to make a change on my end. I need to own that. And we went through and we updated the primary product image to more accurately reflect what the product actually looked like. And we updated the color that we called that product. And immediately overnight, those complaints and those return reasons went down. So there's a seller responsibility to pay attention to those NCX. Your goal isn't to just get rid of them and get your listing back up. You actually want to find if there was a root problem. At the same time, we know that, customers will go through, and if they select something like, hey, I just didn't want this, Amazon makes them pay for return shipping. So they'll keep scrolling through until they find one that makes them not have to pay for return shipping. And so again, you've got to do a little analysis. You got to read between the lines. It is the price that you pay to sell on Amazon, but Amazon does give you data, and customers are giving you data. Listen to that data. Be responsive, and own it. It's actually going to help you be more successful moving forward.
I've got another example, Shannon. I just bought a really big shredder because, we're moving.
Right.
And we're thinning out the stuff so that we can get our moving costs down, right? We're shredding a lot of old files that are old, whatever.
Right.
And I bought an Amazon Basics shredder that said in the listing that we could shred 150 pages at a time. But I tell you what, I can't do more than 10, Shannon.
I think they meant in a sitting.
Yeah. What really sucks is I can't return it because my kids took that giant box and turned it into a fort and marked it up, right? And made it really cool. You remember the fort boxes back in the day?
We got about 5 in our living room.
I'm stuck with this gigantic Amazon Basic shredder, but I don't have a box to return it. But if I did, I would say item not as described. And I just wonder if they would delist their own product. Probably not.
Probably not.
To your point though, Shannon, and you're making a really important point. We're talking about fundamentals.
Yeah.
We're talking about blocking and tackling. If your product has been NCX delisted, or your search suppressed, or your buy box suppressed, and you're looking at your sales going, why are my sales down?
Yeah.
There's an obvious answer. The nice thing about all three of these scenarios is you can really do something about it.
Yeah, they're fixable.
Identify them quickly, fix them fast, and get your sales back.
100%.
And sometimes, Occam's razor, sometimes the simplest solution is the right answer, right? And that's definitely the case. I would say 30 to 50% of the time, your sales are being tanked because of some blocking and tackling moves that you're not paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to because we offer on-demand coaching, so we'll have some potential clients who will have an issue. They've had their products suspended and suppressed as pesticides for like 7 months. And it's just because people feel overwhelmed and they don't know what the problem is. They don't know how to fix it. And what's nice is we know that Jason, I would say on average, sellers are probably only aware of 15 to 20% of the actual problems in their account. They're not even aware of some of the other problems that are hurting their listings or their advertising, et cetera. And so we've just found over and over again, time and again, full service is the best because then you can monitor everything, you can keep up to date with everything, you can manage everything. So again, shameless self-promotion for our services. But I want to take a minute, Jason, and talk about passion because like I said, I talked about why I got up this morning and got to work for some important calls that I want to be on. I know when to rest. I know when to unplug and take it easy. But, years and years ago, Walkman, the Sony Walkman just owned the portable music industry. They owned it. In fact,
I had one.
I had one too.
I had one.
They bought a music company. So they had the product, they had the player, they had the music license, they had everything. But it was Apple that came up with the iPod and iTunes. And Andy Lack, who is a head of Sony Music Division, he pulled out an iPod and he called it the Walkman killer. And he said, guys, the reason you bought a music company is so that you could build this and you can do it and you could do it better. And they couldn't. And Steve Jobs said, the reason we won is because we personally love music. And I mean, for me, this is why I get up every morning. I know it's why you get up every morning. When we're on a call with somebody, it's just like hiring an employee. You can hire them because they're skilled, they've got some talents or expertise. But more than anything else that I find that people want to work with somebody is because of their passion, because they know that it's going to drive them day in and day out to perform the absolute best they can because they love what they do and they care about the brands and the clients that they work with. So I'm just super excited to continue working with our existing clients, with new clients. I would be hard pressed to find if there are other business owners, entrepreneurs, and leaders out there in the Amazon space who are as passionate as we are about that full service management. So I'll stop there, but I love what I do. It's why I wake up every morning, and it's why I joined Avenue 7.
Well, thanks for saying that, Shannon. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, your passion is infectious and it spreads throughout the organization. And we love jumping out of bed in the morning to help change sellers' lives. So thank you for all you do here. Just to recap, folks, sometimes the simplest answer is the best solution, right? And blocking and tackling in the Amazon seller world is making sure your listing is live, active, and sellable. We talked about buy box suppression in the previous episode and some ways to get yourself unsuppressed so that you can get your sales back. Today, we talked about search suppression and what you can do. Largely, it boils down to making sure that you're following the rules, the terms of service, the product title, character limits, the main image limits, and you've included all of the data that's important for an Amazon shopper to make an informed decision on their purchase. And then, lastly, if consumers are returning your products in a high number, pay attention to what they're saying. I can hear you all already say it's not fair, and you're probably right, but just, shed a tear, move on, see if there's anything you can do to update your listing and or improve your product to get those return rates down to make those Amazon shoppers happy. Because when you do that, they'll keep coming back. And look, if you folks have found this content helpful today with Shannon's and my discussion about blocking and tackling, please share it with a friend. If you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon, you can reach out to us at day2podcast.com. That's day2podcast.com. Thanks again for listening and happy selling.